Have the platforms clearly identified the risk they create, and are they really doing enough to reduce those risks, especially for children? We invited the very large online platforms whose assessment are under discussion today. They are not present. This is their choice. Children, however, do not have that choice to choose the digital environment they grow up in. And that is why we are meeting today. Thank you very much for accepting our invitation and gathering today to discuss this very, very important topic. Across the European Union, nearly 80 million children use platforms that are designed to keep them online. More than 90% of children aged 9 to 16 go online every day. 1 in 3 has seen harmful or disturbing content. Around 20% show signs of problematic of excessive social media use. And around 1 in 5 has experienced online bullying. These are not abstract statistics. As the white paper Artificial Intelligence in Education, State of Knowledge, Competency Gaps and Systemic Recommendation for Poland, shared with us by our colleagues just yesterday, makes clear. Children need the ability to understand the impact of AI systems on democratic processes, the phenomenon of post-truth and deepfakes. And this capacity, the papers urge, is the very foundation of digital citizenship. Platforms that exploit rather than cultivate the capacity are failing our children and failing the law. It is deeply concerning that companies whose representatives and lobbyists are frequently present in this house and across Brussels decided not to take part in today's discussion with the Commission, members of Parliament. Thank you very much. And I would like to welcome my colleagues from the European Parliament and civil society. Closed door meetings are not enough. We are asking very basic questions, questions that come directly from the platform's own reports. Civil society is not demanding confidential business information. We want clear data and measurable indicators. We need to know whether the measures platforms describe on paper are actually working in real life. But the absence of Google, Meta, and TikTok will not stop, of course, this conversation. It makes it more necessary than ever. 2 years ago, the Digital Service Act entered into force. Europe decided that very large platforms must take responsibility for the impact they have on society. The law clearly says they must identify and reduce risk to fundamental rights, including risk to children. Now, the law exists, the obligation exists, the supervisory structures exist. The question is whether enforcement is matching ambition, legal obligations are not optional, and accountability must be visible. We welcome the Commission's recent enforcement steps, including its preliminary findings concerning TikTok's addictive design features under the Digital Service Act, and we support the Commission in full use of its powers to ensure that risk assessment, age verification mechanism, and recommender system comply fully with the EU law, including the child safety provisions reinforced by the EU strategy for a better internet for children. So in this context, I warmly welcome representatives of the European Commission from DG Connect, Mr. Eike and DG Just, Mrs. Maria-Myrto Kanelopoulou, whose work on DSA enforcement and digital fairness and consumer protection is crucial if Europe's rules are to make a real difference for children. My sincere thanks also go to Irena, Joveva from Renew Europe for co-hosting this important discussion with me, and to Christel Schaldemose for joining us today and her continuous commitment to strengthening children's rights in EU digital legislation. To our today's moderator, Asha Allen, and especially to Panoptykon Foundation, Katarzyna Szymielewicz with her team for initiating and helping to prepare today's hearing. I also thank the civil society organization present today for your independent and detailed analysis and of the risk assessment. Today's discussion is about constructive scrutiny. All of our present here share the same objective, that Europe's digital rules effectively protect minors. The DSA gives us a strong starting point. Its proper implementation must come first, and it should guide any further steps, including the upcoming Digital Fairness Act, so that our framework remains effective and up to date. And the urgency of this debate is already visible at national level in Poland. For example, there is ongoing discussion about introducing a potential ban on social media for children below a certain age. This reflects the growing public concern about the impact of digital platforms on minors' mental health and safety. If meaningful protection is not delivered, member states are right to consider stronger measures, including social media ban for minors. It is a strong sign that citizens expect stronger protection. At the same time, children in Europe deserve equal protection, no matter where they live. Their safety online should not depend on the country they grow up in. That is why the tools we already have at European level are so important. If we use them properly and make sure they truly reduce harm, we can answer these concerns in a strong and consistent way. Now we must make sure that Europe delivers, especially for children. Thank you very much one time more for your presence here.
Thank you very much, dear colleagues, dear guests, dear friends from Panoptykon who organized and initiated this for today, and also, of course, to all of you who will participate in this discussion. Thank you for coming. This topic is extremely wide and also interconnected with many, past and current and upcoming legislative agenda in the EU, and of course also with wider societal issues which the age of social media brought to our lives. That's to say, it will be difficult for me to capture everything, but I would like to start with California, LA, because last week it was an important court hearing which touches on the core issue with the social platforms. From years ago, Meta, I'm really sorry that they're not here, but Meta internal memo says Instagram is a drug. We are basically pushers, while boosting time spent was a goal for its teenage users. And this drug analogy, intentionally boosting dopamine levels while intensifying it for the kids to, infinitely scroll to increase revenues from ads, in my view, actually strikes to the core. And it proves that what we call engagement is actually dependency. And Mark Zuckerberg testified last week that he overruled 18 of his own experts to keep beauty filters on the platform, calling their warnings paternalistic. But when 18 experts warn you of harm and you ignore them, it's not paternalism, it's negligence. And in any case, to whom should we be paternalistic if not the children? And infinite scroll is not just a feature, but a design for one more dopamine hit. And it has always been so, and it will remain to be so, because this is the business model. And, you know, one maybe cannot blame the tech companies for this because it's their work, but it's clear that allowing them to do as they wish to maximize engagement is not an option here. And clearly, the regulators are the ones who have to draw the lines. And we need to stop asking if, you know, the kids are disciplined enough, and we have to start asking if the product is safe enough. And we should be drawing lines for the dealers, not the innocent users. Safety by design isn't a limitation of freedom. It's a legal necessity for a functioning society. And in Europe, we've done it with many legislative acts. I remember when we proposed banning targeted acts to ads to underage in the already mentioned DSA. And while some of our rules are enforced, the impact of our actions or enforcement is still underwhelming. And furthermore, in some cases, we are still lacking other additional rules, as with, you know, drugs, cigarettes, or alcohol, freedom to marry who you want, to vote, to seek or not consent to medical procedures. These are all freedoms which are curtailed for minors. And these things are widely acceptable in our Western society. So I honestly do not know why some age limitations wouldn't apply to our online worlds too. The reality is that impact on minors is this small. Mental health issues, self-harm, suicides, also in worst cases, additive design, but also, you know, how they perceive the world today and how they get their information and how they socialize, if you can call it socialization, and how they engage with society. So imagine being in your constitutional age, let's say 13, and you learn about the world and become a subject in a philosophical sense, and you get everything online at the same time. So videos from wars, violent pornography, your pictures sexualized using AI deepfakes, your self-image becomes dependent on trolls or bullies and compared to famous actresses, famous models, and even worse, you can become a target of child sexual abuse and life destroyed before adulthood started, with lifetime long trauma, you know, following you around. And since the court case last week in LA was about algorithm design a decade ago, we, I think, cannot even pretend how things have changed since then. But with AI, TikTok, and other developments, in my view, things have gotten only worse. So the link of social media to already mentioned mental health, development, patterns of a child or their behavior is very clear to, I think, anyone who is a parent or anyone who sees past the manipulative narrative on how things really are. So users, including children, are the product, and their mental health in the price themselves and society must pay. Because these harmful elements are not limited to children, as it can influence also us, so adults, particularly women, for example, whose image can be destroyed by AI sexualized photos online, such as we had, and actually I think we still have with the Grok from Elon Musk. So this will have and already has an impact because women, for the risk of being exposed, tend to stay out of public roles, and it has a chilling effect and therefore also wide repercussions for our society. I work here in the European Parliament on many digital files from different angles. I'm liberal and in general against limitation to freedoms, including online. I focus on users, citizens, on how to protect their privacy, how to ensure their freedoms, and how to limit the power of powerful against the powerless. But when users, as people online, become drug users underage, it's really time to put some additional limits. And tech companies have enormous amounts of data on us already, and they leverage this to target ads at us. And algorithms are designed to just keep us on screen as long as possible to extract as much value as possible. And now we have the tools, from transparency of recommender systems to limitation of targeted ads for underage, to safety of our privacy online. But while we have made some progress both in understanding and legislation, the actions are still not effective as intended. And understanding is, I think, particularly important, which lagged compared to the technological revolution and what it brings to our society, with AI now additionally shuffling cards. And this is why this event today is, I think, even more important. And so understanding the necessary for the urgency to act. So I would like to conclude with this, and thank you once again for having me today, and thank you to my colleagues. And also I would like to use this opportunity to apologize because I will have to leave soon because I have a trilogue negotiations for a traineeship directive, actually. So it's also about our children. But we had, some scheduling changes, and I could not anticipate them before. So it is what it is, but I wish you a nice event and discussion, and my team will definitely stay here and I will be fully briefed. So don't worry about that. And let's please just, keep in touch on how to tackle these issues. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We really appreciate that you find time to be with us today in your schedule. And before I pass the voice to Ms. Schaldemose, I would like to warmly welcome Mr. Wawrykiewicz, member of European Parliament from EPP Group. Thank you very much for the participation. Please take the floor.
Thank you very much, dear colleagues. Thank you for inviting me here today. And thank you for making this roundtable possible. I believe that we have already spoken a lot, worked a lot on protecting minors online, but since we're not there yet, we need to keep on talking about it and push for more, especially more enforcement. So thank you for hosting this and making this roundtable possible. Well, it's an easy task I have today because after the two introductions here, it's easy. I can completely agree with what you said. The business model of the big tech giants is unacceptable towards our kids. I mean, one thing is what adults can do and understand. Even for us, it might be difficult, but for the kids, they're online in their very formative years. They spend more time online than they do with the teachers and the parents. And yet we have not really been able to fix the situation. We don't know what they're seeing, what they are watching. Or I could say we know some of it, but not all of it. And what we know is not good. We know that some of them are, as you said, Ms. Joveva, they're faced with murder, suicide, self-injury. They're being bullied, exploited. The content is being shared without consent. And if that should not be enough, then they are even also, at least I know that from a Danish survey, that up to half of the content is also commercialized. It's not directly commercials because we banned that, but it's via influencers and others, they're seeing things. And all this is something that we in the offline world are doing our utmost to protect the kids from. But online, we're not there. And when we made the Digital Services Act, I'm proud of that law because I do believe that it is a good law. We were very keen on, at that time, it was presented in December 2019, I mean, and we negotiated it in 2021 and 22, and in those years we talked very much about freedom of speech, and we wanted to find a model where the platforms would not take too much down on people's right to express themselves. But we also said that we wanted to protect kids. So we did a combination. And therefore, one of the tools we used was to find a way to make the platforms accountable. And that's the reason why we're making them accountable for their algorithms. And that's why they have to make impact assessments. And of course, they are controlled, and we have the Commission and others looking into it, and we want to give access to researchers so they have a chance also to follow what is happening. But we wanted to make sure that if there is a systemic risk, they have to risk mitigate. So we have made them responsible. And what I remember is during the work, one of the things that really made an impact in the process was when Frances Haugen was here in the European Parliament speaking out. And she said exactly what you said. What we learned last week from United States, that Instagram, Mark Zuckerberg, they knew the consequences of the algorithms. They knew how it impacted. At that time, we talked about young women. They knew that they ended up in rabbit holes and only seeing, self-injury and other content, anorexia and things like that. They knew it. And they didn't want to do anything about it. So it was on purpose that they kept on sending or making sure that their algorithms were making sure that they got this kind of content. So, I honestly, to be very blunt, don't trust the platforms because they have a business model. They want to earn money. But then it's our obligation to make sure that I don't mind earning money. I think it's good that we have a market economy. I'm not at all questioning that, but it needs to be regulated in place. And the aim of the legislators on the DSA is crystal clear. We want to protect our kids. Unfortunately, in my opinion, we have to, it's a struggle, a daily struggle with the big platforms because they're not doing it voluntarily. We have to push them over and over again. It would be so nice if we could count on the platforms to be much more proactive and try to help us doing what is right, namely protecting our kids. And one thing is the content they're facing, but another thing is also the system, that they're getting dependent. It's difficult to stay away from the phone. I think we probably all here know how it is. I at least know it, but I'm an adult, so I can face and take responsibility. But the kids, they can't. So we simply need to do something. So I agree. In the Parliament, we have made a report about protecting minors, where we call for harmonized EU age limit for access. I mean, in the ideal world, this was not necessary. And maybe in the future, we will have platforms that are great for our kids. I think they need to learn how to be digital. But in this world we have now, the platforms, the social media, and the tools they have, the majority of them is simply not safe enough. And therefore, European age limit, we say that 16 is the age, and if you have to access before, you need to have your parent to give consent. We hope that the European Commission will look at this. We're expecting very much from the expert panel. We hope that the Digital Fairness Act will help us once it is tabled on the loopholes we have from the DSA. However, a lot of things can be tackled under the Digital Services Act, and that is what we need to do. And we need to push. We need to make them accountable, and we need civil society. We need politicians. We need the European Commission. We need member states, because member states are not doing enough. They're kind of, oh, it's not our job, but it is, and it is also in the DSA their job, and therefore together we can do it, and we have an obligation. The last thing I want to say is that our kids, many of them haven't been in a world without being digital. So of course they're afraid if we're saying that they're not allowed. But let's look at Australia. They're doing it. Of course, somebody is bypassing, but I mean, we can fix that as well. But we need to send a signal, and we need to help them being able to also live a good life, where they can be digital, away from dangerous content. And this is all about business models, because it's about earning money on our kids. Thank you.
Thank you very much for this strong voice. And I see here another representative of European Parliament, Ms. Mirosława Nykiel, but also two members of Polish Parliament, same, Zofia Czernow and Katarzyna Uberman. So as we see, also national governments and parliaments are interested in this very important subject. So I pass the voice to our moderator. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for that great introduction and for setting the scene. Hello, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Asha Allen. I'm today's moderator. For those of you who don't know me, I'm the Secretary General for the Centre for Democracy and Technology Europe. We are a not-for-profit organisation that advocates for the protection of fundamental rights in EU tech policy. And it's so pleasant to be here in the House of European Democracy, where our voices are being represented directly, our members of the European Parliament, but where we can come together to exchange on those issues that are and undermining our democracy that we all care about. I think many of us have been working on trying to realise the DSA's rights protective potential. I very much want to agree with MEP Schaldemose about the DSA being a good law. We agree that we need to bring it to life and make it work. And so this is what we're here to do. We want to create that safer space online for everyone, but we are also mindful that there are those who are particularly exposed to harm, and we want to make sure the measures that are in place are effective in mitigating that particular harm. We're now in the third round of the risk assessment cycle under the DSA, and the disclosure by the very large online platforms about how they mitigate those risks, particularly to those groups that have been identified as needing that extra analysis, thinking about child safety, mental health, tech facilitated gender-based violence was also mentioned, which is also a very critical issue, and well-being has left much to be desired. For those of us in civil society who've been working on these issues for decades at this point, we're really hoping that those provisions will be meaningful and we have increased transparency. But we can tell you today that engagement from platforms towards us under the Recital 90, which I know many of you fought for so that they would engage with us, has also not been realised, and we are also not being consulted on these particular issues. However, that has not stopped the fantastic work of that highlights the critical findings which will be addressed and explored a little bit today. So what we want to do is to frame the conversation around those expert findings, dig a little bit deeper into what we've been able to access, also thanked very much by the DSA, but also those increased transparency obligations, and to bring that conversation into a deeper detail so that we can talk about how to realise the DSA and what are our next steps. I want to pass over to a force of nature, Kasia, who is sitting next to me from Panoptykon Foundation. She is going to kickstart us off with a little bit of an introduction based on a brief that looked into what the very large online platforms actually told us in their risk assessment reports before we get into a thematic discussion. So Kasia, please, over to you.
Thank you. It's a great pleasure to be here. And it's truly heartwarming for me and others in the room who have been fighting first for DSA in this house. Then we joined the fight of the European Commission for its robust enforcement. It's been more than 5 years, and today the fact that MEPs from 3 large groups share our concerns with the business model of large platforms, the model of money making that comes with serious harms, not only for children, also for adults. It's truly a heartwarming experience. So thank you for your introductions. I want to stress that it's not just us in the room who are concerned. Recent polls show that 70% of Europeans want escalating measures against X, just because X has been most loud with its transgressions against, even going as far as to ban the platform if X does not address DSA breaches. So there are people behind this effort. There are people backing up what the Commission has been doing recently. We have welcomed preliminary findings by the Commission on TikTok's addictive design and the investigation into X recommender systems. So with all that good momentum to protect children, we invited today Meta, Google, TikTok, together with Kamila Gasiuk-Pihowicz, honestly, to hear their view on mitigation measures that they themselves have declared in their own reports. It's not whistleblowing exercise. It's not new research we are bringing. We honestly wanted to discuss their own reports in order to understand how is it possible that with so many mitigation strategies declared by these companies, we CSOs, independent researchers, keep seeing a different picture from the research we are capable of performing. Of course, what they always say in response is true. To online globally, but this is why we've been calling for what Kamila reminded, matrix and evidence that only these platforms possess, own, and can reveal. Well, unfortunately, they are not here to tell us their part of the story, but I hope we are only opening and not closing this conversation today. What is important is to understand that major elements of this platform have came into force, and this is why that we offer to MEPs and the Commission in the room. We actually want to focus on the design elements of these platforms to show you what in order to make meaningful. And looking at this bleak picture with research undermining claims made by platforms, looking at platforms' absence in rooms like this, I'm not surprised at all, including Poland, the platforms legislation on a national level, which might cause problems if we really want to have a common market and harmonized laws on platform regulation. Our position is that raising the bar will certainly not help as long as very large platforms remain the gatekeepers for age verification and they remain the judges of how effectively age verification is done. This is why we've been calling for addressing design-related risks, and this is what we will focus on today. So without further ado, I want us to jump into the first theme of the discussion, which is addictive design, sadly still experienced by online users, not only minors. Because platforms are not in the room, I will have the pleasure of giving a few quotes, just selected quotes. There is many more in the brief we provided for today. You should have it printed. And one example, TikTok mentioned that a number of times in the report, it's third report, and it's not the first time they mentioned that. They include daily screen time limit for younger users that is set to 60 minutes by default. So theoretically, we should not see younger users, which is according to TikTok terms and conditions, people between 13 and I believe 16, who scroll longer than 60 minutes. Is this the picture that we see from research? You will have a chance to assess yourselves. Second example, Google declares many measures in place to address the same risk. So the risk that the interface design and features of YouTube stimulate behavior addictions. It's a good point that the company acknowledges that this risk exists and has to be mitigated. So a big plus for that. And what they say they have disabled a number of standard features that are normally available on YouTube, like comments, uploads, purchases, live chat. Is it sufficient? Well, you will assess yourselves in a minute. Third example, TikTok. Oh, sorry, Meta. Meta declares they take steps to embed safety by design to help users engage safely online. Actually, they have a wonderful list that we would love to see, and I speak without irony about this, a taxonomy of design patterns that should not be implemented, and they are taken from DSA and from GDPR and from consumer law. So maybe there is a really good list we could be working on. Unfortunately, we haven't seen that. So how well are they doing in practice? Now, in the second part, we will invite CSOs and researchers in the room to share their findings.
Thank you so much for kickstarting the conversation, Kasia, and already some of those findings are a very clear indication of what it is that we're looking into and some of the critical issues that still need to be explored. So the way today's conversation is going to be framed is around three key thematic themes. We're going to be looking, all of these actually that are tackled by the Digital Services Act and are also part of conversations of ongoing implementation of other existing laws or looking to the future for the Digital Fairness Act, for example. We're going to start with dark patterns and addictive design. We will move to the theme of exposure of minors to harmful content by algorithmic systems, and then we'll finally look into the question of age restrictions, parental controls, and granular user settings. In order to frame the conversation and get a little bit more detail on each of these themes, we'll be hearing from our experts who'll present some of the findings from their key research, and then we'll open the floor for any discussion points, but we will have time at the end, not only to hear from those of you in the room, but our colleagues here from the European Commission at DG Connect and DG Just. But mindful that we have a lot of expertise to go through, I'm going to throw the floor over immediately to our first speaker, who I believe is Lisa. If I can ask all of our speakers also to introduce themselves, and by way of efficient moderation, when you see me do this, you've got 1 minute left. So over to you.
Thank you very much for having us. My name is Lisa Dittmer. I'm on children and young people's digital at Amnesty Tech. Today I will across almost all platforms covered today, but in the interest of specificity, I will speak to TikTok specifically as one of the foremost platforms used by children and young people today. TikTok told us in response to research we led in April last year, we built the strongest safeguards into teen accounts by default and help ensure young people have positive experiences on our app and to give parents peace of mind. In its risk assessment report, as we've seen here, TikTok points to various user tools such as daily screen time limits, family pairing tools, and sleep reminders in an effort to convince us and the regulators in this room that the app is safe. The reality we have documented through accounts and extensive across Europe, nationally, as well as neurologists tell a very different story. And so do the internal documents that have come to light through recent US litigation efforts. TikTok has consciously maximized the addictive qualities of design choices and engagement strategies employed by the leading social media companies. The company proudly markets its For You feed and how it lands within mere minutes a user's preferences, simply by engaging with its content recommendations, turning an unprecedented surveillance machine into a means of keeping children and young people's eyes fixed on the screen. This hyper-personalized feed is combined with infinite scroll, autoplay, notifications, and virality signals like the like button in an evident clash with the European Commission's Article 28 DSA guidance, which explicitly references such measures as persuasive design features that may lead to extensive use or overuse of the platform or problematic or compulsive behavioral habits. In fact, TikTok's own internal documents reference powerful design tactics and get people into flow, the psychological state of extreme engagement, loss of sense of time, and even loss of self. TikTok has done this in spite of mounting scientific evidence of the serious risks associated with addictive use of social media, especially for children and young people's health, such as sleep and attention problems and even changes in brain structure, similar to those observed in people experiencing drug addiction. Publicly, TikTok controls and family pairing functions. Yet their own internal documents show that TikTok's leadership explicitly warned product teams against implementing changes that would reduce so-called stay time of minors and excessive users by anything more than 5%. The marketing of user controls as mitigation measures shifts the responsibility for mitigating the harms of a system that is designed to keep users engaged onto children and their parents, leaving children, as our own interviews show, blaming themselves for the harms they experiences, believing them to be the result of their lack of self-discipline, and parents scrambling to navigate parental controls, which they often simply don't understand. Our research with children and young people who are drawn into rabbit holes of depressive and self-harm related content highlights the full extent of the risks associated with this addictive design and the hyper-personalized For You feed. Teens to the app at the age of 14 to have fun, just a bit of entertainment, and found themselves instead dragged into streams of videos that normalize self-harm up to the point of discussing concrete suicide plans and methods. She told us seeing people who cut themselves, people who say what medication to use to end it, it influences, encourages you to harm yourself. There are videos that are still burnt into my retina. There are behaviors that remain. Maya was 14 when she signed up to the platform in 2021. And I want to note that due debate to new age restrictions, it was years, well into her late teens, that Maëlle was still struggling to escape these rabbit holes and the severe mental health effects they were having on her self-harming behaviors. As our experiments show, mere hours of watching videos related to mental health themes suffice to take a teen account from music videos to suicide challenges. And we alerted TikTok to this finding in 2023, and yet a follow-up project just last year in France showed no effective change whatsoever. In TikTok's 2024 risk assessment under the DSA, the company acknowledged that certain types of concentrated content, their euphemism for rabbit holes, may cause harm by inadvertently reinforcing a negative personal experience for some viewers. Further mitigation measures are once again listed, such as dispersion techniques, and yet our research both in 2023 and 2025 showed no evidence of this providing any effective protections to the young people who were constantly exposed to these harms and very likely continue to be exposed. Stéphanie Mistre, the mother of Marie, who fell into TikTok's spiral of depressive content and ended her life in 2021, told us, for these platforms, our children become products instead of human beings, using their emotions to capture them. So with due respect to Stéphanie and the many other families we interviewed who are actively advocating for better online protections, it is upon European regulators to effectively and rapidly enforce the DSA to tackle design choices that are putting the rights of children and young adults at risk. Demanding meaningful transparency in relation to risk mitigation is one of those elements, but our research underlines that only a fundamental change in core platform design choices and business objectives will ensure a rights-respecting digital environment to which children, I would like to remind everyone, have a right to and to participate in. The DSA and the forthcoming DFA offer tools and opportunities to tackle exploitative design across various tools. We must look beyond social media ultimately. We are also talking about gaming, AI chatbots, and digital platforms that are designed to maximize engagement. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Lisa. That was fantastic. And thank you for the critical work that Amnesty is doing, not only in looking into these very specific things, but talking to those who it impacts the most and bringing that key message. Thank you so much. I think we're going to be, you're well aligned with our next speaker. Michiel, please, over to you.
Thank you very much, Asha. And thanks to the organizers. My name is Michiel van Hulten. I'm Dutch. I come from a country which has a pro-EU government. Nice. Strategic research at an organization called Reset Tech. Reset Tech is a global not-for-profit organization that tackles digital threats and does so mainly through own research, which is a range of research, including content moderation research, but also, for instance, open source intelligence. And we use that research to inform our policy making and try and convey those views to policymakers. I'm also a former member of this house, so it's nice to be back after actually quite a long time. But above all, I would say I'm the father of a 12-year-old, which means that I'm dealing with these issues on a daily basis with a huge sense of urgency. And I feel like by now I've got a PhD in parental controls. So our message on this is clear. We cannot rely on platforms to self-police when their core business model relies on design features and systems that inherently put children at risk. Platforms weaponize extended use design to keep minors intentionally stuck on their apps. This is driving a crisis of sleep deprivation among children, among other issues that have already been mentioned. A recent survey of European 16 and 17-year-olds that we conducted in partnership with YouGov revealed that 93% of children surveyed said they felt stuck on social media at least once a week. And 63.5% said they experienced feeling this every single day. 1 in 5 of these teens reported losing sleep every night. The most addictive platforms, according to these findings, are TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube. 75% of teen TikTok users, 69% of Instagram users, and 68% of YouTube users reported staying on these platforms longer than they had intended. And the users know exactly what is trapping them. Over 80% point directly to endless streams of content and hyper-personalized feeds as the cause. Shifting the burden to user choice is a proven failure. Our survey shows that most teens do not use time management tools, often because they simply do not know they exist. For instance, 41% of teenagers surveyed didn't know that YouTube had these tools. And you don't need to take our word for it. Next slide, please. This month, a new report from the Knight Georgetown Institute, who unfortunately can't be here, but who wanted to share their research, found that there are significant gaps between the risk mitigations that Meta and TikTok describe in their DSA risk assessments and the actual effectiveness of these measures revealed through internal documents in US litigation. For instance, the report points out that even according to Meta's own internal documents disclosed as part of litigation, almost 1/5 of Instagram teen users exhibit behavior associated with problematic use. Thank you.
Both for sharing your findings and that of our friends at Knight as well. But between what it is that's being reported in the risk assessment reports and then what is in internal documents that we're only being able to find through litigation and in other forms of discovery. So thank you so much. We're going to go to our next speaker, who is Manon. Manon, please.
Thanks, Asha. Thanks to a co-host. Thanks to Panoptykon for all the organization. I'm the head of EU Affairs at Five Rights Foundation. We are an international NGO that focuses specifically on protection of minors in the digital environment. So we've been publishing research on addiction and addictive design since 2021, but very recently we published a preliminary case study on the new Instagram teen account that was implemented in 2024. We are going to continue our investigation this year. I think that everybody here has seen the campaign on the teen account. It was a huge marketing and communication campaign, and Meta described it as a major advancement in protecting young users. However, in our study, talking about addictive design specifically, we didn't note any meaningful change to design elements aimed at increasing engagement and time spent. The only observed change was screen time reminders, and we all know that they don't really work. And our avatars remain subject to persistent notification, autoplay, infinite scrolling, and prompt to interact with suggested content. Even after logging out, the account receives app notification and emails prompting them to re-engage with the app. So now, of course, thanks to research, thanks to my colleague, the risk of addictive and manipulative design are increasingly low. However, the platform keeps targeting and exploiting children and teens, however young they are, so less under than 13, because of course, we know they are a critical demographic, or as one TikTok executive stated, the golden audience. And indeed they are. A recent study by the Copenhagen Economics Consultancy estimated the business revenue that the largest platform make on Danish children. The study reveals that the 5 major platforms made an estimated 45 million revenue on Danish children in 2024, or in other words, they generated more than 50 euro per child from ad revenue. What at stake? So harming children through addictive and persuasive design is a business choice, one that for us clearly contradicts the DSA. We, of course, welcome the European Commission preliminary finding on TikTok addictive design. It's a huge step in the right direction, because what children need is for the system to be redesigned, to be safe, to be private, to be secure, for them to use. It's why we've been calling for 2 years for a swift and robust decision, of course, on the TikTok file, but also on all ongoing investigation on protection of minors. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Manon, for highlighting those critical pieces of research, but also the welcoming of the decision, which I think many of us in the room were waiting for, and for the movement there of the European Commission, which I think has been a lot more fast moving in the last a few months now that things are operational. So we're going to come to our last speaker for this particular theme. So Leandra, please introduce yourself.
Hello, thank you so much for having me. I am Leandra Voss. I'm a representative of Control at Reclaim, which is a European youth movement focused on tech justice and digital rights. We're made up of 18 to 27-year-olds across all of Europe and have recently published a report spotlighting young digital activist voices across Europe. And we also did a qualitative analysis looking into what young people actually want from social media reforms. So when I speak to people my age, it seems like an open secret that social media is affecting our lives adversely. Whether that be staying up too late, doom scrolling, falling into rabbit holes, getting harassed, you name it. But too often these conversations blame us as individuals. This is all the while millions of dollars are being invested in maximizing time spent, user retention, and interaction with social media platforms. As the MEP said before, boosting time spent and creating dependency. And of course, this is an excellent business model for the companies, but we do not believe we're getting a fair bargain. Statistically, young people use social media more than all other age groups, and it affects us also at critical stages in our lives. Thus, we are in a way the canaries in the social media coal mine first. And we are seeing too often benefit. This is why Ctrl-Alt-Reclaim is calling for a more transparent, customizable social media for all, including young people. On social media, we are too often exposed to addictive designs, features that hack our psychology to give more benefit to the companies that own the system. This includes dark patterns, including infinite scroll and invasive notifications that provide frictionless experience that encourages users to stay on platforms. It also includes ephemeral content, which exploits people's, and especially young people's, fear of missing out online. And all the while, this is why for a person in a scrolling session. All the while, there are also unsafe and often unchecked algorithms that through interaction-based recommender systems prey on emotions for rage bait, often leading to radicalization and polarization. Additionally, unchecked algorithms promote harmful content relating to eating disorders, mental health issues, and other harmful topics, which encourages young people to fall down dangerous rabbit holes, leading to mental health issues and radicalization. Measures taken to improve this, especially by platforms, include, of course, prompts encouraging users to use social media apps less, but these are counterbalanced by countless more features that promote staying on the app longer, ones which the users cannot turn off. Risk assessments, of course, are a step. However, there's also a need for more accurately representing direct input of young people and to closely study the impact on young people's mental health. Finally, crucially, addictive design affects everyone. It especially affects vulnerable people, not only people under 18, also young people over 18, LGBTQ+ people, disabled and neurodiverse people, and people of color. At Ctrl-Alt-Reclaim, we are concerned that age restrictions will shift, or the discussions around age restrictions shift the blame away from the harmful design of platforms. Thus, they simply delay when the harm is being done to people. There is further a risk of isolating the many young people that will inevitably bypass the restriction them to report, and a risk of bringing up privacy issues relating to age assurance, which we've already seen in previous incidents. And while we are arguing about age restrictions, the be overlooked. Major identified reasons for this platform harm we have found dark. Thus, there needs to be the discussion needs to focus on making social media for everyone, better for everyone, not just young people, but also young people. Beyond risk assessments mandated under the DSA, we need customizability and openness. That includes the option for non-personalized feeds, turning off dark patterns, and more. Concretely, this means mandated safety by design and fairness by design, the strict enforcement of existing laws, including no deregulation of existing laws, and the protection of young people's privacy online. Tech companies must be held accountable for their design through these obligations. Finally, it would be remiss not to point out discussions surrounding this are often not inclusive of young people. Too many times we are speaking, or Other people are speaking for youth and not with them. Young people bring a wealth of knowledge to the table, from situated experience to lived experience. And I can promise you that there will not be a truly safe internet for young people if we are not able to take part in creating the solution. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that brilliant intervention, for bringing the voice of the group of people that we're here to talk about, and for highlighting something that I think is at the root and the foundation of this, which is that the online platforms that we're engaging with are unsafe for all of us, and they impact different groups in different ways, and there may be very specific aspects to this, but fundamentally, the DSA and the work that we do around platform accountability comes out of the fact that we fundamentally want to change that environment for absolutely everyone. And your comments made me think of those our colleagues and champions from other movements, whether that's the disability rights movements or others, where they very clearly say nothing about us without us, right? And so that you should be in the room helping make those decisions. So thank you so much. So that brings us to the end of the first theme. In terms of how we want to be able to think about this, it's nice having this research. We bring it to you, our members of the European Parliament, to those who are monitoring enforcement and insight. But the real question is, what do we want next? How do we want the platforms to respond to what it is and how they will move forward? If we could just very briefly go to the next slide. I think as a baseline for this, we could have this conversation for several days, but everyone is quite busy, so we'll make sure that we'll be succinct. But I think as a baseline for this, we're looking for more information and more metrics to prove that the mitigation measures that they're putting in place are effective. We shouldn't have to rely on, say, the disclosures of litigation in another jurisdiction in order to see whether those mitigation measures are effective or not, so that you can make more informed choices as enforcement bodies, but also as those looking over those enforcement bodies to be able to hold those platforms to account. We have several examples here, but I think in the interest of time, maybe we can share these very concretely with you so that you can see what those examples are. But as a baseline, we are asking for much clearer metrics. But I do want to give the floor to others to be able to respond, particularly to those first themes. So we have a couple of minutes for any comments or reflections. Is there anyone who would like to come in now?
Urs, did you want to come in on this topic?
Happy to. Thanks a lot, Kasia. Good afternoon. Urs Buscke from BEUC, the European Consumer Organization. Thanks a lot to the members of the Parliament for hosting this important event. Thanks to Panoptykon and CT for inviting us. I think we all agree on the problem that needs to be addressed, no doubt about it. And we also agree that the DSA is a great instrument with a lot of potential that we need to use. I think we also all agree on the fact that the risk assessment reports do not properly reflect the problems that we all agree upon. So they need to be improved. And of course, we also welcome the efforts of the European Commission to make full use of the Digital Services Act to protect consumers, in particular the preliminary findings on TikTok. But nevertheless, we as BEUC, the European Consumer Organization, think that relying on the DSA is not enough, and I share the view of those who trust in the upcoming Digital Fairness Act, because as previous speakers have pointed out, harmful practices such as addictive designs are not limited to social media. We all know, I think Lisa from Amnesty has pointed out, video games, for instance, or chatbots that can deploy addictive features. And also I agree with the previous speaker from Ctrl Alt Reclaim that they affect all of us. So what we need is an instrument that applies horizontally in all sectors and that protects all of us. And that is consumer law. But consumer law was not written to address these problems. Key instruments of consumer law, in particular the Unfair Commercial Practice Directive, they have been adopted 20 years ago, in 2005. I don't need to tell you that the world was different back then. It needs to be updated. It needs to be updated to address all the problems that we see and ensure that we have a safety net for all of us, regardless of age, regardless of service that we're using, to be protected against these harmful practices. So I'm here to express strong support for the Commission's intention to develop an ambitious Digital Fairness Act to ensure safety of the online environment and its fairness for all users of all ages. Thanks a lot.
Thank you so much, Urs, for highlighting that critical point. I think the harmonization between the, let's say, the digital rulebook is quite essential and making sure it's up to date for all of us. So thank you for bringing that perspective too. Please, I wanted to come to you next. So this is perfect. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, because I do apologize. I have to leave in a few minutes because of the change of the timing of and the plenary. But thank you very much for all your comments. And I think that what you have told us here today is just adding to the knowledge we already have, and that is not a knowledge that makes me happy, but it really shows that we have an issue and that we really need to keep on working to make sure that we are enforcing the DSA strong and good. I have to say, in all fairness, that in the beginning I thought the European Commission was quite slow in enforcing the rules. They had to set up and have all the things in control before they could start really monitoring and enforce. But I think what we see today is that the European Commission has been doing quite a good job, and recently with all the investigations, but also some of them has already been ended and resulted in fines, and I think we will probably see even more in the future. However, the reason why I wanted to take the floor was to say that in principle, I agree. It could be really good if we could have a true, safe online environment where we could even send our small kids out to. But honestly, I don't trust the big tech right now. And I think that in order to make sure that we can protect kids, I believe that age verification and an age limit is one of the tools we have in our hands now, even though I fully recognize that kids and young people, they want to be online, and I fully understand that. But until I can feel sure that it is safe, I would rather prefer some kind of age limit and age verification system than letting kids being online like it is. And to be very honest, and I don't know, Kamila, if you agree with me, but it will also here in the European Parliament right now in this mandate be difficult to end up agreeing on what is the right kind of content, what is the right environment. I mean, if we should start discussing that and finding new wordings around it, it would probably be difficult. So even though I fully understand you and I'm really sad that it's not possible, I believe that right now, besides the DSA and the GDPR and what we have of digital rule books, one of the new things that could result in a faster protection could be this age limit and age verification. Having said that, please do not hesitate. Keep on contacting me. I appreciate all your hard work, your research, and I read the reports, and I would be happy to continue doing so. And in IMCO, we are following this, and I am the chair of the working group of the enforcement of the DSA in IMCO, in the Internal Market and Consumer Protection Committee, and we will follow this. So if you have things you're seeing and you're afraid of, or you think that we need to react on this, please do not hesitate. And I wish you a fruitful roundtable, and I do apologize for leaving. Thank you.
Thank you so much, MEP Schaldemose. I know you have to run, but I did want to take just 10 seconds to thank you for all of the hard work you put into the negotiations on the DSA. We don't forget that you were leading on this, and also for your willingness to come and participate today and hear the diversities of opinions on this very specific issue. We agree with you. We should very much continue the conversation and hopefully land in a place that's as rights respecting as possible. So thank you so much. And
we will definitely be in touch.
Thank you very much. We had a comment from the back, please. And if I could ask for your comment to be quite short, Shori, we just have a couple of more things to run through.
Thank you, everybody. I hope that's better. My name is Elizabeth Mcguinness. I'm representing the European Sex Worker Rights Alliance on behalf of my colleague, Anna Ornelas. I'd like to thank everybody for the invitation and the opportunity to be here. I believe that we are all aligned in our aim of protecting children That said, I think it would be remiss as a room of those that are engaged in civil society and protection of fundamental rights to not acknowledge that the agenda for child protection can often be used as a smokescreen by actors that are pushing for certain agendas that are anti-rights and particularly anti-gender when it comes to algorithms and content moderation. Surrounding incel ideology and that type of radicalization is often elevated, while content related to sexual education, sexual and reproductive health, for example, victims' rights services for those who experience gender-based violence are then often squandered by those systems. And so I would like to echo the words of our colleague from Alt-Right Reclaim in saying that if youth are the canaries in the coal mine of social media, sex workers are very much and have been canaries in the coal mine of the surveillance state. So we must also recognize the harms that come along with pushes towards age verification in ways that are not critical to how those can elevate surveillance agendas and pushes towards co-option of biometric data and the harms that those would place upon marginalized populations, including sex workers, LGBTQI populations, those who are undocumented, and so forth. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that important reflection and reminder that the role of balancing rights is that, right? The balancing of rights and ensuring that measures that we take to protect certain groups do not undermine the rights of other groups as well. So it's vitally important. Thank you so much. And a wonderful segue to our next theme. So thank you. We're going to come to the theme now on the exposure of minors to harmful content by algorithmic systems. In the spirit of ensuring that everybody has the opportunity to speak today and efficiency in terms of time, we're going to be hearing from two experts in this particular panel. So I will come to the quotes. Sorry? The quotes first? Yes. But first, Kasia is going to give us a little bit of an introduction, and then we'll hand over to our first expert.
Yes, again, I will have a pleasure of quoting some of the reports of the great absentees in the room. In all risk assessment reports we have analyzed from the three major companies invited today, but absent, we have spotted actually with great interest, with honest great interest, we spotted declarations that there will be investments or there have been investments in product features. We're talking about design, not about user controls that are always less efficient and effective in mitigating risks than defaults. So we're talking about new defaults provided according to platforms for those most vulnerable. So starting from minors, hopefully spreading to adults one day, product features that prevent their access to legal content, because mostly we are talking about legal content. If it's illegal, it should not be available at all. So legal content that for various reasons can be harmful. It should include rabbit holes. It should include content that is triggering young people, depressive conditions or health-related conditions or suicidal attempts, various risks that we've been discussing for many years. Can I have first example? YouTube specifically says that acknowledges that this risk will never be eliminated, but their measures result in significantly lower residual risk profile. So they're really happy about the result in their Excel, I guess. And they declare they keep users and society safe through built-in protections to prevent, detect, and respond to harmful content. Next one, please. TikTok says that their policy prohibits or age restricts a range of content related to suicide, self-harm, disordered eating, body image, and what we all know very well from TikTok in the past, dangerous activities and challenges. That would be a much better internet for minors to live in, I agree. You will see in data whether we have that confirmed. Next one and last for this intro, Meta, they work to avoid making recommendations that could be finally low quality, objectionable, or particularly sensitive or inappropriate for younger users. They also say they offer users ability to control how much of certain types of content they want to see in their feeds. So that's very important because this is one of the platforms acknowledging that they can build criteria we've been calling for years, like quality, credibility, relevance into the algorithmic system. This is exactly one of the mitigations we've been calling for. Is this working? I was supposed to be one of the speakers in the next round, but I will skip my slot to give more time to others. But I reassure you that you have more examples from research we analyzed in this brief. But now over to Asha.
Thank you so much, and thank you so much for handing over your time. But we know that everything is included in your very detailed brief that you very helpfully shared with everybody. So please do take a look at that. So we're going to go back to our expert group. So Michiel, I'm going to come back over to you. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. And this will be brief. So Kasia, you can always come back and add some more to the points that you were making. Recommender systems are active distributors of life-endangering comment. We've already heard something about that. Content, sorry. We've already heard some about that earlier in the session. In our research, we routinely detect pro-self-harm and pro-anorexia content, for instance, that is accessible to minors as part of our content moderation experiments. Now, actually, a lot of the research we do is aimed directly at regulators and provided to regulators and isn't published. But in Australia, we have comparable research that was published where our researchers created false 16-year-old accounts and tracked the content recommended to them. And we found that on Instagram, 23% of the recommended content was explicitly pro-eating disorder. On X, it was a staggering 67%, with an additional 13% containing explicit self-harm imagery. Meanwhile, content moderation and ad approval systems are systematically failing. When our researchers reported explicitly pro-eating disorder content, TikTok removed only 15.5%, Instagram removed just 6.3%, and X removed just 6%. Even more alarmingly, when we submitted fake ads promoting platform on TikTok, 83% on Facebook, and 75% on Google. And in conclusion, we can say that relying on parents and teens to mitigate the harms of this multi-billion-dollar strategy. I just wanted to add one more general political point about the whole debate that's going on at the moment, because every time there is a commission decision being announced or a commission investigation being announced, there's immediately a backlash from big tech, from the US political establishment. And it's easy to forget that actually this debate isn't just taking place in Europe, it's also taking place in the US and in many countries across the world. And if you look at opinion polling in the US, you will see that the views held by American citizens aren't actually that different from the views held by European citizens. And if you look at the actions of, for instance, governors in the US, state attorneys general who are taking cases to the court against the big tech companies, again, it's not very dissimilar to here. They're extremely active, and there's really almost no distinction between Democratic and Republican state administrations when it comes to taking on big tech. And I think it's useful to bear that in mind when we consider the debate here, where there's always a lot of concern about whether or not the EU should take the risk of standing up to big tech, should take the risk of enforcing our digital rules effectively. I think the reality is that we are not in a situation where it's the EU versus the US, it's the people versus big tech. And that should strengthen our resolve in making sure we stick to our rules and enforce the rule book.
Sure, and just before I can, thank you so much for highlighting that really important political point, which I think has been on the forefront of the agenda for many. Many of you in the room know that there have been targeted attacks against civil society organizations working on the DSA specifically over the last few months. And looking into that broader context, I always like to reflect on the fact that there wouldn't be pushback if there hadn't been progress in the first place on accountability. So that progress, I think, in trying to hold those companies to account account for their human rights due diligence obligations and compliance with the law. That pushback is coming for a reason. So I very much agree with your assessment there. So thank you. Kasia, you wanted to highlight one slide in particular.
Yes, indeed. I want to bring some data from Poland, from recent study with 7th grade students in Poland. It's a large-scale representative study that shows us real experience of people out there. So not an experimentation, not a sock puppet account, not a situation in which researchers created something, but in-depth interviews, both qualitative and quantitative, with real people, young people living in Poland, their experience with social media without identifying the company, but it is about the 3 major platforms. There is no other address we can go to. You can see quite a shocking percentage. Almost 40% of students in the 7th grade complain about receiving suicide-related content while not seeking for that content. So this is exclusively related to the way algorithms work. And even worse, almost 60% of them continue to receive such content after attempted suicide. So this is exactly the rabbit hole corrections of algorithm mentioned by platforms I just quoted, taking these quotes from their own recent risk assessment reports, were meant to prevent, and we do not see a mitigating impact in research concerning real users. Thank you.
Thank you, Kasia. I'm now going to hand over to Nico from, please, there you are. Go ahead.
Thank you so much. My name is Nico Schmidt. I'm representing HateAid, a German digital rights organization and one of the organizations affected by the blowback from the United States. So from 2024 to 2025, HateAid has examined and assessed DSA reporting channels. To this end, we had 2 qualified German lawyers reporting content they deemed illegal on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, X, and YouTube. And to our surprise, it was not X or TikTok, but YouTube that had the lowest removal rate of illegal content. In fact, we found that only 32% of reported content was removed during the period under review. And it is important to notice that this is an average because, like all the other platforms, we saw a fall in the rate between 2024 and 2025, hinting at how the developments in the United States also affect platform behavior in Europe. We were also stunned by the fact that YouTube, while acknowledging the receipt of all our reports, didn't come back to us after a month in 36% of the cases, so we didn't get any final takedown decision confirmation. And this lack of feedback raises significant questions about the compliance with Article 16, paragraph 5 and 6 of the DSA, which requires platforms to process reports and communicate the decisions without a delay. And finally, YouTube also made it very difficult to report content. The report form requires users to provide their full name, although this is not a mandatory requirement under Article 16 DSA. They required users to swear, and I quote, under the penalty of perjury, that they are authorized to report this alleged violation. And they sent us again and again mails asking us to provide information that we had already provided in our initial report. So all of this low content removal rate, the lack of response, and the design of the reporting channels discourages users to report harmful content their encounters and makes the platform less safe. And this leads me to one question. If YouTube is so serious about safety, why do they make it so difficult to report illegal content? Thank you.
Thank you so much, Nico, for highlighting the kind of alignment of the different issues that we're talking about here, not only from the risk assessment aspect, but the mitigations aspect. But those provisions that are meant to empower users are prohibitively difficult. And for expert organizations like yours, even trying to navigate that has been quite prohibitive. So thank you for highlighting your experiences. So we've come to the end of this theme. I just wondered if anyone had any initial comments very specifically on the harmful content aspect. Otherwise, we can move swiftly to our 3rd theme. Oh, we do have one question. Please go ahead. Please introduce yourself.
Hey, I'm Lev Letor. I'm representing the Digital Intimacy Coalition. We're a global network of sex workers, sex tech specialists, etc. And we fought quite hard to have porn platforms designated as VLOPs, I think 2 years ago. But what I've been not hearing this much at this round table is more about like how other other ways to protect minors other than age verification of content that they will keep on looking for online anyway. And actually we're fighting for, or like we're asking for, a better taxonomy of sexual content online, so we can put in a better framework in place to actually see what content is harmful and what content is educational. Because what we have right now is just not sufficient to protect minors, and they will keep on looking for this content. You're 16 years old, you're curious, and right now what will happen is you'll drive them away to offshore servers for small porn platforms that we can't control, or pornography that will be downloaded, etc., etc. I think it's unrealistic to expect that minors, or at least teenagers, won't be actively looking for content like this. So we just need more, and that's also why we're calling for a bit more of a conversation with the sex work and the adult industry to really be involved in this legislation and to really be like heard in as to like, what do we do to solve this? Because in the end, the biggest or the people that ask the most for safety in this industry are the sex workers themselves, are the porn actors themselves. So I think that's a big one. We are now publishing our assessment or our analysis of the risk assessments of the 3 designated VLOG platforms that focus on pornographic content. Will be published in 3 weeks, I think. So I hope you guys will hear from that then. Thank you.
Yeah, just a quick comment that in this briefing, we were aware we will have only 2 hours. We negotiated more with Parliament staff, but even 2 political groups could not get it. But yes, if we get invited for a separate hearing on positive recommendations, we have plenty of those. Even before we started risk assessment, we already had briefs ready with proactive mitigation measures. So we are more than happy to present them again in this house regarding what happens with algorithmic design, with algorithmic systems badly designed. In the brief, you will find more examples of censorship of legitimate content, including resources meant to help minors in mental health crisis and suicidal thought crisis, while the suicidal content remains online. So we see the absurd opposite of the desirable effect, and I understand it's the same as your argument. Minors, instead of having access to legitimate content that could improve their sexual education or answer their questions about their health, actually targets them with hardcore pornography, which is not what we want. So yes, we see this problem, and this is why we criticize the mitigations for not being efficient in that regard.
Thank you, Kasia, and also thank you for the comment in highlighting what I think is actually at the heart of the debate. I think many organisations here, and please, you can all wave at me frantically if you think I'm wrong here, but are trying to have a very nuanced conversation about what we mean by age assurance, right? And I think there has been maybe a zooming in on age verification, but we at CDT have also done multiple, when I say multiple, I think about 5 reports in the last 12 months on how to approach age assurance from a much more nuanced and rights respecting way, and rights respecting way for broader communities, but also for the rights of the child as well, which also includes, you know, freedom of access to information, freedom of expression, and things like this. So I think that's actually at the heart of this conversation. And it's an excellent, thank you, Kasia. It is an excellent segue to our next conversation about age verification and parental controls. So this is our 3rd and final theme. I'm going to be waving frantically so that we can have time to hear from our institutional colleagues at the end for their reflections. As I see, they've been very diligently following along. So we have a couple of experts following us today, and I think we're going to first start with Justyna. Please, did you want to introduce the comments from the platforms first very briefly?
Yes, very briefly, just to show that major attention in the reports we analyze have been paid to these kind of controls, because they are not about designing the platform. They are about the extra features that require users, be that minors or adults, to be active and to take responsibility for their online experience. I have nothing against user empowerment, although I hate the term user, but we've been proactively proposing a number of, I still believe, excellent ways of improving what we think is empowerment or authentic personalization. But this is not to say that I have to defend myself from addicting my phone. We actually expect something much more effective from platforms like end of feed or end of session, or you have exhausted your time for today, good night. We haven't seen those as explained in previous themes. For this theme, I just want to bring quickly a few examples from reports we keep quoting of the apps. YouTube, they have bedtime reminders turned on by default. Still, they do not specify what happens after the reminder. I fear that not much happens. It's just a reminder and not the switch off. And next slide, please. TikTok offers tools and settings to empower users. They also like this term, to influence what they see on their feed. So again, we might be talking about the mitigation measures we've been calling for, which is modifying your experience, modifying your feed in a way that is not harming you. But unfortunately, they focus on keywords and hashtags that are predefined by the company. And again, I don't think that a result that you would expect could be achieved here. So I could put sexual education versus porn, and because anything containing sex will be downgraded or blocked by the system. Meta, last example, of course, they remind us that in order to use Facebook, users must be at least 13 years old. You will see in a minute data from the real world showing what happens out there. But Meta has processes to identify and verify users' age on platforms if their algorithms discover that something is wrong, that somebody actually behaves or looks like a younger person. Unfortunately, the end game is uploading a photo or engaging a parent to take a photo of themselves rather than show me the ID or employing external application to prove that a person is 13 years old. Okay, so now over to our experts.
Hello, my name is Justyna Hofmokl. Thank you for inviting me here. It's a wonderful discussion and I'm proud to be a part of this movement. I'm a sociologist by education and at heart, and I'm a head of research of the Polish NGO called Institute for Digital Citizenship. And we do a lot of things. We educate people, we engage in policy work, but one of the most important part of our work is research, because we really believe that we have to have data to speak on, to use as an argument. And I would like today to focus your attention to our report. This comes from last year, but we will have a new round of data this spring, hopefully. This was quite important thing, not only for our organization, but also for the whole discussion in Poland, because these data about the real activity of young people, children online are coming not from an interview, not from declaration, but they are based on real activities. So we have been lucky. It's an interdisciplinary initiative with multiple partners engaged. One of them is a company, are the companies who deliver data based on active real usage of devices. So up to every second measures of usage of the phone of not only adults who participate in a research panel, but also children. So this data come from the company that is called Gemius, and was good enough to give us the data that usually go for companies who pay for them. So this is these are the basic data that can give us the real picture of Polish teenagers active online. And we have focused here on the group that interests us most here. These are people from kids aged 7 to 12. So these kids should not have been on social media. So we can see that out of 2.4 Polish children aged 7 to 12, 1.4 million children use social media. So they are there. So we cannot pretend pretend they're not active there. So what is interesting here to see, it's TikTok says that that it has a 60 minutes block after which young user
only for 13 plus, maybe for 12 they don't have it.
Yeah, really. Yeah. So you can see that this is still group 7 to 12. They are most active on TikTok. They spend 2 hours, 11 minutes there, and also this individual sessions. So each time we take the phone and unlock the app are very high. Also for Messenger. And what I also wanted to highlight here, because we have this very vivid discussion about smartphone ban at school. These graphs we call sleeping dromedaries because they remind us of dromedaries. So this is the graph showing usage of the phones of kids age 7 to 12 and 13 to 18 during the day. So you can see that they grab their phone just after they are awake. So between 7 and there is a peak. Then they go to school. So we have drop of usage, and then they come back from school. And they start to use social media very intensively, and there is this drop at around 5 p.m. when parents come back from work and ask, how was the day, how was your school? And coming back to your discussion, to your arguments, what Google says that maybe there is this function to remind you should go to sleep. We can see on this graph before that during the night hours the use is really intensive. So I know that we have very little time, so for the all the details I will send you to the report that there is available on the table. But the numbers are really important, and they are hard to access. And also I would like to point your attention to the findings for the bit older group 7 to 14, that the porn site Pornhub was one of the most popular sites among those accessed by kids in December 2004. 900 kids in the age group 7 to 14 accessed that page. Thank you.
Thank you so much for presenting those findings, and particularly getting hold of data, which is very hard to get hold of. So we're actually going to move forward. We're going to go to Manon next, because we want to ensure there's enough time for our institutional colleagues to be able to reflect on our findings. So Manon, I'm going to come to you.
Thank you very much. So going back to our more recent case study on Instagram, and maybe to answer Keisha's remark earlier regarding Meta's claim in the risk assessment report, it's not very surprising, but we did not observe at this point, because it's preliminary, that teen users were really offered the ability to control how much of certain content they see on the feed. Actually, they have no control at all. I'm going to talk a little bit about age insurance. Also, unsurprisingly, in our testing, all avatars were able to register using only self-reported birth date with no additional check. According to another of our colleagues from Interface Mind the Gap report, it's also the case of the 7 other platforms mostly used by children in the EU. They use only age declaration, and children remain unprotected. And I agree with my colleague from BEUC, it doesn't only concern social media, but also video games. So we do need tech-neutral legal tools, such as the future DFA, and also a strong and protected GDPR. Notably because age limits already exist in the EU, in particular the digital age of consent in Article 8 of GDPR, but we all know they are neither respected or enforced, and the spirit of the GDPR is not implemented. And we actually do believe it is possible to assure the age of user in a child right respective way by respecting the principle of proportionality and the right to privacy. We also need to bear in mind that we need to act according to the fundamental principle of evolving capacity of the child. A 9-year-old is not a 14-year-old. And as we have seen before, 9-year-olds are on social media and on other platforms, and they really shouldn't be there. 2 weeks ago, we also published a new report on age insurance. Also, we also, like CDT, have a few reports on that subject to set out how age insurance can support, as safe by design, children's right approach, not as a tool for exclusion, but as a mean of enabling age-appropriate services, safer default, and proportionate protection, because there are actually two options. The first one is to have safe platforms for all users to begin with. And the second one is to recognize children online and to give them specifically age-appropriate experiences. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Manon, and also for highlighting the critical point of what GDPR says on this issue too, which is very important and something we've also similarly highlighted. So I'm going to come to our last expert speaker today. Matteo, it's over to you. You have 4 minutes. Go ahead.
Hi, thank you for inviting me. I am a PhD candidate at the IMT School for Advanced Studies, Lucca in Italy, and a postdoctoral researcher at the University of Amsterdam. What I will be today, the findings that together with a colleague we had regarding the analysis of the audits and systemic risk reports for 3 very large online platforms, the second round, so the 2024 ones, namely Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube, for what concerns specifically the transparency and user control of recommender systems, so Article 27 and 38. We expected to find, let's say, much more information and to be able to share it with the technical community, because this paper that you see here has been presented at the ACM conference on recommender system, that is the main technical venue on this topic. But however, what we found while by analyzing the reports in comparison with platforms' compliance strategy is that there is some overlap between what platforms provided under the DSA. For example, if you look at the control options here, there are some commonalities between Instagram and TikTok. For example, clicking interested versus non-interested, filtering out specific words and phrases from candidate recommendations, and even reset suggested content to restart the feed from scratch. And also some differences, as you can see, Instagram provides a button to select the level of sensitive and political content exposure, while TikTok provides functionalities such as sort and filter. However, found out is that we analyzed there is no direct control provided over ranking criteria and the weights of parameters. So, for example, we don't know and we are not able to control the importance of parameters such as watch time versus like in influencing the recommendations. And then secondly, the effect of user choices, for example, selecting less political content is not explained. So we don't know, for example, by selecting this button, what will happen in the algorithmic selection and ranking of content. And some options are not documented at all in the reports. For example, this political content choice is not documented either in the audit or systemic risk report of Meta, and the STEM feed on TikTok. We is also the relationship between platforms and audit. The auditing companies under Article 30 that some audited most of Instagram and YouTube certified positive results and compliance for all the requirements of Article 27 and 38, while some of these platforms did not have even a single specific functionality for disabling profiling-based recommendations, such as YouTube. The companies like KPMG that audited TikTok found the platform non-compliant with the requirements for user control, so providing options to control recommender systems. And while these platforms had very similar compliance strategies and the outcomes of the auditing were different, we found out that there were significant differences in evaluation criteria. This should come to no surprise, also given that there are no standards published on the user control and transparency of recommender systems. And this is the stage of the field at the moment. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Matteo, for also bringing that important dynamic on the importance of the audits. I think that often when we're looking at those aspects of the risk assessment mitigations, we have to be mindful of what those audits are also highlighting and showing to us. So we would have the reflection here on what we want to hear from VLOPs here, and in terms of the metrics that I think is a baseline. But I think mindful of time, we would love to hear from our institutional colleagues who I see have been diligently taking notes throughout. So thank you so much for listening. So
we will provide you everything in writing, don't worry.
Exactly. Who've been listening so deeply to the expertise that's presented here today. So I'm going to hand over for the key takeaways. So if we could come to our host first, to our MEP host, Miss Kamila. Sorry, if you had any key takeaways or reflections at the end, you can wrap us up. That's perfect. Great. So we're going to come to Eike Graf from DG Connect. Please go ahead.
Thank you, Asha. Thank you for hosting. I mean, you are still here, but to both of you, and to everyone for being here. Also, if I may, congratulations for everyone who organized this event. It's really impressive to have this with, I think, as Kasia also said, 3 MEPs from large groups. That's great to see, and also thank you for the observations that you shared today. I came here, of course, with the Commission talking points on the expected points, like the guidelines on the protection of minors and the preliminary findings concerning addictive features on TikTok from earlier this month. But I understood that you all, or most of you, in any case, everyone who spoke seems to know them really very well. So I would perhaps use the little time available to react to things that have been said throughout the discussion. And one thing I heard several times is the need to have access to measurements of systemic risks of metrics from the platforms. And this is a nice occasion to also repeat also here that in October last year entered into force the Delegated Act on Data Access for Researchers under the DSA. This is precisely to enable research into the systemic risks and the mitigation of systemic risks, how well it works. And we are, of course, in constant contact with the digital services coordinators in the member states, and they hope to soon work on the first applications for data access requests. So that's just to echo this, the frequent references to the need for measurements. Then I would like to confirm that it's really also the Commission perception that we need safe online services for all users, including children and young persons. And this is also reflected through the guidelines and then the enforcement actions in TikTok, which I will be skipping over actually, because I'm also not the last person to speak for the Commission. So maybe just one thing, because it was also mentioned then for the expert panel and the expectations concerning an EU age limit that would be harmonized. So here just very briefly that we hope to have outcomes from this expert panel in the summer. With that, to go to a bit more substance points that were mentioned, right? I think the colleague from Ctrl Alt Reclaim mentioned also the importance to have this option that the feeds are not personalized, and for just to recall, for the very large online platforms and search engines, this is of course an obligation under Article 38 of the DSA to have those. And then it's very interesting for us also to know how well does it work for people, and how aware are people of the implementation of this requirement. So we are always interested in learning also from civil society observations today and beyond. Then there was some expression of disappointment with the risk assessment reports published by the providers. And here, very briefly to say, the risk assessment is the action done by the providers that covers really many aspects, as they are also required in Article 34 of the DSA. And then the risk assessment report, as required under Article 42, is about the results of the risk assessments. So it is quite a big process that has to be undertaken. And then I think it's very good that the expectation of the information that should go into these reports keeps being keeps being expressed again and again, and that there's then also the clarity that the results need to be comprehensible. So how a company arrives as the risk level assessed needs to be comprehensible also. And one of the things that keeps being mentioned here are, again, metrics and measurements. So I can also say here that also for the Commission, the transparency purposes of the requirement to publish the risk assessment reports means that the results needs to be comprehensible, and that it must be clear how are the services working, how are the risks coming about, and how is the assessment arrived at. So that's also the expectation that that we absolutely have towards the regulated entities. Short points is that because today that I at least personally didn't know yet, and you were also mentioning reports published based on an analysis of the risk assessment. So we are of course very interested in that. So we have a form, an online form on the Commission websites for CSOs to tell us about their work and to get in touch. So we are also working on making this form known, and that's why I wanted to mention it also in this round, and to receive any feedback on making it useful. So I hope we can organize that your report will reach us. And then on the last points concerning the risk assessment reports on the audit reports, and this is to close the loop with the thanks of organizing this event and sharing the observation by the civil society organization speaking to, but then really also to researchers who look in depth at these reports. And here maybe one piece of information: the reports published by the providers of VLOGs and FLOCIs are really not very different from those that we as the Commission receive from them. So they have an option to redact them under Article 42.5, but we are very happy to see that the redactions are really minimal circumstances, for example, to protect personal where they can do this. And I can say that generally we did use it. Yes, I hope I did not overuse the time, and thank you.
Thank you much, Eike, for sharing your reflections. I'm going to come to your colleague from DG Justice, Maria-Myrto. Please, over to you.
Thank you very much. Mindful that we're almost at the end of our time, I wanted to thank very quickly and sincerely you, Chair, the honorable members, but also all of you in the reflections. The very timely moment for the formulation of our proposals on the Digital Fairness Act. I think the discussion showed once again the breadth of the challenge that we are faced with, and I think we should, from the side of DigiConnect, DigiJust, point out that the Commission has actually a very wide range of tools aimed at addressing these challenges, including with regard to cyberbullying, to child sexual abuse online, and so on. So I will use these few minutes, first of all, to place where the Digital Fairness Act comes in this constellation, and try to share a few thoughts on each of the three thematics that we addressed today. The Digital Fairness Act has as a starting point our fitness check of horizontal consumer law, and the objective is through the Digital Fairness Act precisely to update our horizontal consumer law provisions. This means that it is a proposal not targeting specifically platforms, online platforms, but targeting all types of traders, including platforms in their capacity, and aiming to strengthen the horizontal safety net that applies to companies online, regardless of their business model, regardless of the sector that they are active in. So we feel it can be a very useful complement to the DSA, which, as was highlighted by many MEPs and speakers today, is indeed a formidable instrument that is starting to get implemented. We're following very closely the work of our colleagues in DG Connect, and we're determined to ensure coherence, building on the DSA guidelines for minors, building on the enforcement actions, such as the one on TikTok on addictive design, but also being clear about remaining gaps and addressing them in a targeted manner. Where the gaps exist, consumer protection at the moment, notably with regard to dark patterns, marketing, and unfair personalization. These are the areas that we identified in the fitness check, and now at the phase of preparing the impact assessment. We had a broad public consultation of over 7,000 responses to our public consultation and call for evidence. I know some of them came from you in the room, so thank you very much for your active involvement, and keep it up. I'm mentioning this to first of all, there was a very clear message from the public consultation that the majority of respondents accept the European Union, the European Commission, to do more. Many of them ask for further EU action and for binding measures specifically. And among the results of the public consultation, measures or questions we posed with regard to the protection of minors specifically were among those where responses were the highest in favor of further EU action. I mentioned just indicatively switching on over 78% of those who said further EU action is needed said we need new binding measures. For the prohibition of personalized advertising aimed at minors, extending the existing DSA prohibition, we had 83%. And for the restriction of certain types of content, information, promotions through online influencers, the number was 86% when these are addressed to minors. So we feel we have very indications that we need to look very seriously into these issues in our impact assessment. We see the digital contributing to the protection of minors in two ways. First one, of course, is in addressing gaps in protection in the for all consumers. As was highlighted, we have general consumer protection rules, notably under the Unfair Commercial Practice Directive, that are principles-based. What we have seen is that there is a hesitance by traders, by enforcers to implement these general principle-based rules in technologically complex cases. We need to make them more specific. And we also see sometimes lack of clarity on the side of traders on how these general principle-based rules are supposed to apply. The second way we are looking to use a DFA for the protection of minors, and there I have to make a parenthesis and thank the European Parliament because you have been very clear from the very beginning of this mandate that more is needed, and we have made the protection of minors a key dimension of our work on the Digital Fairness Act. A second way, therefore, is to look if in each of these areas specific provisions might be necessary when the consumer in question is a minor. So I'm saying this to say we are trying to take your input into a kind of square the circle. Yes, we want a safer internet for all, but we are also ready to consider specific, more restrictive rules if necessary to protect children as young consumers online. When it comes to addictive design and I can say already that this is an area that we are looking at very concretely through our impact assessment. It is an area where in the DSA we have a provision clearly referring to the Unfair Commercial Practices Directive and excluding practices covered by the UCPD. So for us, this is clearly an area where more clarity can be useful, and we can possibly think of concrete prohibitions of dark patterns, possibly by extending our current prohibitions under the UCPD blacklist. When it comes to addictive design, we do feel that there are measures that are worth considering, giving overall users more control over addictive design features. Again, when it comes to we are assessing options that go further than that, switching off certain features, for example, by default, and we very much welcome your feedback at this stage. When it comes to recommender systems and algorithmic content, of course, there is already regulation in place, and my colleague referred to the provisions of the DSA regard. We're looking at this also through the lens of addictive design and maximizing consumer engagement to see whether further necessary in this regard. And finally, one word on age verification, age assurance. I would like to make clear, of course, that for the Digital Fairness Act, the technical side of age verification, age assurance is not part of our scope. Our colleagues in DG Connect have work strands in this regard through the EU Digital ID wallet and age verification solutions that preserve user privacy. What we are exploring under the impact assessment is whether, in case we introduce specific provisions under the DFA relevant to minors, this should be complemented in certain cases by age verification, age assurance, age verification requirements. One last word on the digital age of majority, because this was a clear message from the Parliament's own initiative report resolution. It is something that our President von der Leyen, has also highlighted, and something that needs to be carefully looked at. We know that several member states, Poland was mentioned, but they're certainly not the only one. We see reflections in France, in Spain, in Greece, across the board. So we are following these developments very closely. There is a process of a panel of experts that is ongoing, that will be the main forum to discuss this. On the Commission side, from the perspective of the Digital Fairness Act, we stand ready to integrate any relevant findings in the proposals if that is deemed appropriate. We expect them to finalize at some point, but I cannot tell you at which point. Yes. That is the perspective. So we are following the work of our colleagues in DG Connect, and we stay open to see what fits, if at all, in our proposals. Final point, I will not dwell on it, but I was planning to make a big point. It was already covered by Eike very well. We share your pain when it comes to data. So at this stage assessment, it is very important for us to be able to quantify and have really reliable, measurable figures, good metrics on the problems we have discussed. So again, an invitation to submit to us any research that is available. I'm also saying this for our colleagues from the industry, in case they are listening somewhere, because very often, we are hearing general statements. This is essential to our business model, and any tampering will be catastrophic, but it's very rarely backed actual figures on what the impact would be. So this would be very welcome from our side. Thank you so much.
Thank you both for taking the time to share actually detailed reflections and conveying how much you were hearing the expertise that was presented. We understand the challenges. Civil society have been trying to get this data for a long time, but we also are pleased to hear about the level of coherency you're trying to bring with the Digital Fairness Act, and I think basically everyone in this room is very invested in seeing this too. So mindful that we're over time already, I wanted to give the last word to one of our co-hosts, MEP Kamila
Thank you very much. I really appreciate this, what we heard today. It was elaborated, and I really will take it into consideration. And thank you for sharing so many different perspectives from Commission, from non-governmental organization, and from Parliament too. This exchange of views is, in my opinion, really essential if you want enforcement, which will be strong, fair. To sum up some way our discussion, I think that firstly, I'm not so sure that we need another layer of legislation. Problems that DSA already address. We need to close the implementation gap. The DSA already gives the Commission strong powers to address systemic risk to minors. Secondly, transparency must become the rule, not the exception. Without access to meaningful data, enforcement risk become symbolic. And thirdly, enforcement must focus on measurable outcomes. We welcome Commission and steps regarding TikTok and X. This progress is really important. But we also must be honest, if serious risk continue despite enforcement, the political pressure for EU-wide rules on age verification and minimum age limits will only grow. So, but I really appreciate that we aren't acting alone, that we have engaged civil society organization, we have constructive cooperation with Commission, and we have shared responsibility to ensure that children are genuinely protected online. Thank you very much for this discussion, your effort, your statements. I really appreciate, and please stay in touch because the greatest challenge is still in front of us. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, everyone, and enjoy the rest of your day.